Cool. I'm here with James Hillcoat, who's an Agribusiness Consultant with Rural Directions. James, your talk on the top performing grain growers today was interesting. How are the top performers retaining 30% of turnover as profit?
Yes, it's really a mixture of making the income pie as big as you can, but doing it cost effectively, and then looking at your low overhead, creating a low overhead cost business through efficient use of machinery and labour resources, but also knowing debt positioning and not creating an overexertion in terms of growth. And that's creating a resilient business in which one's able to identify risks and bounce back from those risks.
So how could grape growers take your advice and apply it to their vineyard?
There's a lot of key learnings from the grains industry that can come out into the grape and wine side of things. In terms of growing, timeliness and agronomy is really two key things that will apply across industry. So having timeliness is one of those that we can sort of knowing what needs to be done and looking at it as a whole management calendar and then working back to be able to hit that and sort of how do we do it cost effectively. Obviously, low cost business model is applicable to you and I in terms of personal finances. But also in terms of any business or industry. So ask the question, how do we get more from less?
What do you see as the biggest challenges currently facing primary producers?
I think climate volatility will be one of them. What our top 20% growers are doing is actively managing and mitigating risks. So through the identification of what's the occurrence of a risk happening, and then what's the likelihood of a risk happening, and then sort of taking steps to manage that. So if we look at the grape and wine sort of scenario, if climate's outside of your control, but frost is a major impact, or how do you sort of, if the occurrence is high in a particular spot, how do you mitigate that risk? So that's a really key one to sort of go forward. I think there's some higher macro issues in terms of succession, but succession will mean different things to different people and different stages. So again, it's a process. It's something that shouldn't just happen. So. And they're all risks that you have to really sort of think about and mitigate on the way through.
So we had a question from the audience today about staff on the vineyard. What would be an example of maximising the most out of your staff?
Yeah, so top 20% growers are really good logistics and systems thinkers. So they know how to get the most out of their machinery and labour, and some of that could be in terms of looking at lazy assets or how do we get more from less again. Great example was a corporate farm. The one piece of machinery that they own, they have a contracting model, they own one piece of machinery, and that's a sprayer. So to do all those hectares, you actually turn that labour unit in from just a farm hand to what would now be a sort of crop monitorer. So it really provides that labour unit to become more of an asset rather than just being seen as a farmhand. So I think any sort of, be it grain or grape, can really look at it and say, well, what's the roles and responsibilities that we require of our staff, and then look at the price point. Are you an employer of choice? And then sort of where do you want to be in terms of low cost labour, but sort of not so much an asset to your business? Or do you pay them a little bit more and get more from them?
And what would be your top tip for improving profits on farm?
So really we have to take in all the key learnings but integrate them and be able to implement them at the farm gate level. So there's plenty of knowledge out there, but there's probably an implementation gap. So number one is gross margin optimization. So how do we get the most from the existing resource and how do we do it cost effectively? Low cost business, people and management, and then the risk management, and they all have to come together, and that's what's driving that top 20% performance.
Last question for you, what's your favourite wine variety to drink at the moment?
I always enjoy a Barossa Shiraz. Nice and full body, but that's probably the extent of my wine knowledge.